With the first pick.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're not Jared. This is a different podcast today. Uh, I've been thinking about intros for this the entire time, honestly, and that was probably the best way to put it. But welcome to On the Clock. We don't have Jared today. It's going to be it's Tyler, and we got Monty here as well. So first thing,
a hot dog bat.
yes, he does. We'll talk about that more in a second. But speaking of bats, got to talk about our sponsor, Titan Bats. Very, very happy to have these guys sponsoring us. If you're looking for the highest quality handcrafted wood bats in the game, Titan Bats has you covered premium maple, ash, and birch game bats in 10 different models and colors to fit your swing and style. As you're gearing up for the spring season, Titan Bats is a perfect option for your next wood bat. And in addition to game bats ranging from youth baseball to softball to men's baseball, Titan Bats also offers award bats that make the perfect gift to celebrate a teammate, coach, or baseball fan in your life. Check them out at titanbats.com and use the code JB15 for 15% off your first order. How did that go? Do you think that the voice is good for a PR person at a baseball game, Monty?
Yeah, I thought it sounded pretty good. I mean, you throw you on the radio.
I was about to say, speaking of which, we're going to talk about our weekends here, and really, you're turning into a radio star, sir.
I had a lot of fun. One of my buddies that I've met doing this, Colin Lacey, who is the voice of Georgia Tech Radio, offered to let me come on all weekend, basically. So I was providing color commentary on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as Georgia Tech and Pitt played, and it was pretty awesome. I mean, it's just, two silly guys having some fun and talking baseball back and forth for 4.5 hours sometimes. And I just, he wanted me to come on he was like, hey, you want to come to South Bend next week for our series against Notre Dame? I was like, that might just be a bridge too far in terms of my travel schedule.
I was about to say that's probably gonna be what, like 6 hours plus.
I would do 6 hours. It's at least 10. It's halfway to Omaha.
Oh,
I mean that literally, not metaphorically.
I was about to say, I know you've done that drive from Richmond to Omaha.
Yep. So, and I stop in Indianapolis, but if I took a different route, and it's about 10 hours to Indianapolis, but if I take the northern route, it would be 10 hours to South Bend. So, but that's not all my weekend had. My weekend also featured Georgia Tech giving me my own hot dog bat, signed by Kent Schmidt, who is the hot dog man at Georgia Tech. And really cool. They just had a couple of them lying around, and they hooked me up. For those that don't know, I did a video segment on Kent and the hot dog bat last week. A lot of fun to talk about him with that. And basically, it sounds like a nickname or a comment made by a coach that escalated. And he saw they had this design at Custom 44 Bats, which is a bat company with Drew Burris that obviously supplies Georgia Tech's bats. And so he's like, I guess I got to get it. And, I think the term he used is somebody called him the Glizzy Gladiator. So I was calling him Schmitty Two Bags over the weekend. He was hitting a lot of doubles. He's a doubles machine. He's just a really good hitter. Not a ton of power, despite a pretty good frame, but he just a professional hitter that grinds out at bats. But yeah, a lot of fun down at Georgia Tech. A ton of personality there. Meeting all them and getting to be there for Danny Hall entering the top 10 winningest coaches in college baseball history was pretty cool. And of course, he was super modest about it. Yeah, you could tell he's uncomfortable talking about himself. He very, very awesome person. Danny Hall is, and I think he is a person that is a bit underrated. So awesome weekend.
Yeah, and now I do got to ask, Kent Schmidt's favorite hot dog. Is there like the red style hot dogs, cheese filled?
You know what? I should have asked this. This is a great. I'll message him right now and be like, hey, unrelated, just a random question since I didn't ask it this weekend. But no, I know there was some controversy because if you guys notice, there is ketchup on the bat here, the red, and then the red XP there. There are only two pieces of equipment that have red on it at Georgia Tech because of the University of Georgia connection to red. The other one is, I think, Vaughn Lackey's glove has some red on it. who, by the way, he's unbelievable. Getting to see him the last 6 conference games defensively, like I know, like he's hitting this year, but I know last year he didn't hit, but he's got to be shooting up some draft boards based on pure catching defensive skill alone.
100% he is. That he was on my initial 26 board as it was anyways for the catching prowess. Like just given Georgia Tech's history of being, I guess I don't want to use the term lightly, but catcher you.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at a college team in the past like 10 years, maybe the only one that rivals is like NC State because obviously Patrick Bailey, Jacob Kozar, Alex Sosa now in the mix, Andrew Schneider.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I think he's on a minor league deal with the Nats right now.
I believe so. So like, I feel like there's competition between those two, but I feel like those are the only two that kind of have that catcher you applied to them at this point.
Yeah, and obviously Vaughn's super athletic. I mean, he'll play third to get Drew Rogers some playing time. And I saw him rob somebody of a hit, and I was like, that's just unfair. You can just throw your catcher at third base, and he just makes web gems. And no, but I mean, the amount of strikes I saw him steal over the last two weekends is unbelievable. So, I mean, just Georgia Tech's defense, very impressive this weekend. But Vaughn Lackey, of course, Drew Burris, always impressive. So, a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I don't know if you saw that the defensive metrics that D1 put out last week, but like Georgia Tech had, I think Vaughn Lackey was on there, and then it was Carson Curse at third base was the other one. And I'm just like, this Georgia Tech team is very different from years past. Like the defensive pitching is much improved, and the offense is a different kind of a grind.
Amen to that. And I did see that too. That was a really impressive list to kind of break down too. And I still got to go down more of it, I think, too. Any other like things that really stood out to you down at Georgia Tech that really caught your eye, even with Pitt? Because I know you got the Gritzburg Panthers, you know.
Yeah. Tate McKee for Georgia Tech went 6 innings finally. I mean, he's looked really, really good. And it was interesting talking to both him and I think Brady Jones, who started the next day. They talked about the mental side and pitching with confidence. And I think Tate mentioned something I wish I could dive down more if I was like a Georgia Tech beat writer. But he talked about the mental coach they have. They brought somebody in that the pitchers will meet with and work on the mental side of the game. I thought that was really interesting and really important in pitcher development, right? On the Pittsburgh side, Tyler, Luke Cantwell should not be in college anymore. Like he should have been drafted. I don't understand how somebody, by the way, you want to hear something shocking? Luke Cantwell didn't walk this weekend.
Are you sure it's actually Luke Cantwell?
I don't know, but well, trust me. Yeah, he was. Yeah, him and Lodi were having a lot of fun chirping back at each other all weekend. It was definitely Cantwell, but he had like 6 or 7 hits, but no walks. But I just the way he plays, like I know at this point age is a factor, but last year he was a regular junior, and I would have thought somebody. I mean, based on his profile, I mean, he's a really good hitter. He's got one of the best eyes in the country. I mean, it's just I'm shocked that he's still at Pitt. And then, of course, Ryan Zuckerman is going to be a fun guy as he continues to develop at third base. He's got, I mean, you look at him, he has a pro baseball frame. You know, a lot of swing and miss in his game still, but I mean, when he does play well, he hits the ball hard. And then, of course, I mentioned it a little bit off the show. Drew Burris has been really good, but not quite the best player in the country, which he's capable of doing. But he is heating up. This weekend, just a monster weekend, hitting the crap out of the ball. And I think he had 3 extra base hits today, 2 doubles, and a home run. So on top of yesterday when he had a pretty big game as well. So look out, Gardner Webb on Tuesday. Guys, look out. South Bend, Notre Dame. I know you guys are really good at home, but yeah, Drew Burris is getting hot.
Love that. And speaking of guys in the 26 class, I could contend for best college baseball player right now, Justin LeBron, Alabama. We'll talk about those guys in a second, but I guess we can talk a little about what we got here in Columbia. Like, Oklahoma South Carolina was a really really good series, really was. And it really showed a lot about what South Carolina's team is like. Having Minary come in and get some guys out of the portal like Nathan Hall from Clemson, who finally has playing time for the Gamecocks. I really like him as a not only as a college baseball player, but as a potential top of the order, guy that you can tinker to swing with because it's a lot of ground balls. Doesn't really have loft to the swing, but it's a lot of tools. Plays center, has a ton of speed. There's good raw power in there. Ethan Petrie's still there. He's hitting better now, and I know I wrote about him before the year where 24 wasn't really the greatest year for him. A lot of swing and miss. It's really shorted up this year, and there's not. I think he's cut his K rate in half. I think it was something from like 26%. Now it's like 15, and everybody's taking notice. So like, I'll wear it on the chin if that evaluation ends up being wrong at this point. But seeing the progressions from Petrie is definitely a good thing for everybody involved there. Whether you're a scout, college baseball fan, everything, because when he's on, he's really really good. Um, and even too, like you're looking at what you get with the Witherspoon twins on the other side. Kyson Witherspoon, man, I don't really put like high ceilings on guys that I see sometimes, unless it's like really outstanding, like Hagen Smith when he struck out 17 last year. Yeah, that was ridiculous. But it wasn't the greatest line for Kyson. I think it was 5 1/3, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. I think that qualifies as maybe his not only his shortest outing of the year, but probably his worst one in terms of results. But not a single fastball under 95. He hit 98 like 5 times. Cutter slider was working really well. Has a really good curveball. Worked on the changeup in warmups. Uh, I think he might be the second best starting pitcher in this draft class now. I really do, and that's saying a lot when Tyler Bremner is still obviously pitching somewhat well over there at UCSB, but I know he's had some issues in terms of the fastball shape backing up. And what Kyson's been able to do has been pretty wild. And the whole 95-98 across, I think it was something like 90 pitches that he threw on Friday night. It's pretty impressive, as well as the fastball shape. Like he's throwing rising cutters essentially, and nobody could touch him on the top rail of the strike zone. So it was really really impressive. And Malachi, I think, is more of a reliever, but like same thing, holds mid 90s really well, gets up to 98. A different fastball shape really, because it's a lower release, but gets a lot of run. Get really good curveball. Like the curveball in the first inning, man, it was electric. It really really was. But South Carolina began teeing off on them. They saw the fastball. I think KJ Scobie sent one 109, or it was like 107 440, and almost hit his face on the scoreboard in left field on the concourse. So overall, the South Carolina team, I think they're better than what most people have put out there for me. Like, this is a scrappy bunch. I know they lost the series today, but they fought really really hard against a really really good Oklahoma team.
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear that about Kyson Witherspoon. Obviously, you didn't mention who's still number one pitcher in this draft class who returned this week after an illness. They said he was only going to go 65 to 70 pitches. He ended up going, I think, 79, but it was another just routine Jamie Arnold taking care of business outing. It doesn't feel like he's really been tested. It's been very casual, good. It's just another, I think it was 4.2 scoreless, 8 strikeouts. I think he did hit a batter, maybe had 2 walks, which is I bet he would argue that's a pretty bad start compared to what he's done the rest of the year. But apparently he's coming off a pretty significant illness that put him on a pitch count this weekend.
Yeah, I think the rumor was he was throwing up repeatedly last week, hence why Joey Vellini pitched on Friday, and I assume that's the reason why this week, just like getting more rest and everything like that. But speaking of that Florida State pitching staff, the rotation I don't think even allowed an earned run this weekend.
I have their stats right for something else right next to me. Let me check. I think you are correct. I think they were all unearned runs that were scored on their main staff here. If I can pull that up, Florida State. Valini gave up a run, not an earned run. Jamie didn't give up anything, and then Wes Mendez gave up a run, but not an earned run. So and that's 17.2 innings, 2 runs, 0 unearned, and then they each had 8 Ks.
I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, that rotation's been filthy. And I was thinking, I mean, they could leave Jamie Arnold in that Saturday role, and that could give them a pretty big edge if Fellini keeps doing what he's doing on Friday nights. And all of a sudden, you're either going for the series win or to even the series with the best pitcher in the country on day 2 against somebody who is probably not your best pitcher.
Yeah, and like Wes Mendez is returning in a really good start of the year in that Sunday role too. And this is even without like Cam Leiter. Probably we just don't even know he's pitching this year. Evan Kress is
not been what we expected.
Yeah, like it hasn't been the kind of stuff we expected after his freshman year. And I think now, obviously, I think there's an injury involved now because he did leave a start against Florida on Tuesday. But still, like it just shows how much depth they have and how good of a staff they really are. Like that's how you win. That's how you go to Omaha. First off.
Well, and that's what let them down in Omaha is the lack of depth. Obviously, remember Brendan Oxford was completely toast by the time they got there, and he was their best reliever. And unfortunately, that they were out of guys. And once they lost that Tennessee game, they were pretty much, it was going to be a really, really tall task to dig out of the losers bracket with the lack of staff. But yeah, they've done a great job. They've got a deep roster. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can't wait for them to really get tested. Obviously, they lost to Florida, but that's a midweek. Like, you were going with Evan Kress, who's your 4th guy. I really want to see how they go once they get, some really challenging ACC games in there. I know Boston College is, I mean, there's no easy series in the ACC, but Boston College is towards the lower end.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, I mentioned Justin LeBron earlier this week. He was also sick. I think he got pulled Friday's game, but then came back Saturday, still went 3 for 4 with a home run or something like that.
Yeah, supposedly Rob didn't even know he was sick until halfway through the game, which is interesting. So, because Rob seems like he'd be pretty in touch with his guys. He seems like a player's coach. So, especially with Justin LeBron, who is, your star. I was surprised when somebody mentioned that. I was like, wow, Rob must have been a little busy with some other stuff but taking care of his guy. I know people like to freak out anytime you take somebody out, but obviously illness is a lot better than, a tweak or an injury because it's typically very temporary.
Yep, absolutely. And it also is just like, I know some guys will still play sick no matter what. I think LeBron is definitely one of those guys. And again, coming back the next day, doing as well as he did, I like just seeing what he's been able to do this year. Like, obviously, we talked previously about, last year, power wasn't really there, but he could really hit, play shortstop. He's now really evolved into that next tier of college baseball player. And to look at what is still ahead of him too, like this kid's still got another year of college baseball in front of him. He's a 26 eligible guy, starting to hit the ball with way more authority this year, which is for me really impressive for a guy that's his size. I think something like 6'1", like a $180 or something like that. And I think that was what it was last year. I don't know what it is this year. I haven't checked yet, but
you know how I feel about height right now with our 2026 draft class.
Oh, I know.
I was just messing. But yeah, I mean, I love this Alabama squad, and they have completed the sweep of Texas A&M at Texas A&M. So the Texas A&M struggles continue. We've talked about that enough. I want to talk more about this Alabama team because Roll Tide. And I got to see them in Jacksonville. I don't know if you saw that. I actually tweeted that earlier today. It's one of my rare non-ACC tweets as they went for the sweep. But, they've got legit Friday and Saturday guys. Zane Adams and Riley Quick are legit. And that gives them a chance. And they've got these grinders. I mean, Brennan Norton and Will Hodo are 2 guys. We can talk about Justin LeBron all day. But these kind of grinders and veteran leaders that come up, just good college baseball players that maybe aren't necessarily the biggest draft prospects, but those 2 guys are legit as well. And they were grinding through the 9th inning. And I think both their wins came late in the 9th and before Sunday when they just kind of dominated start to finish in a pitcher's duel. But yeah, Rob Vaughn is got them going well, and they've been passing every single test that's been thrown at them. Again, I was blown away in Jacksonville. I know North Carolina State went into that tournament with some mental issues that they have since, fixed. But I mean, when they faced Riley Quick in the bullpen in that game, I think they could have played 27 innings and not scored on Alabama.
Yeah, and you mentioned Riley Quick too. Like Quick, I think initially we didn't think that he would even pitch this year because last year he only pitched 3 innings, had an elbow injury, was done for the year. Comes back, he's now just. I mean, granted, he's not pitched deep in the games. Like he's going 5, giving you enough value.
I saw his first start, and I can't remember. He went 3 or 4. He was very limited. I think he wanted to go more, but Rob was like, chill. But yeah, you want to be careful with him. But if you can get him fully stretched out and keep him healthy, that's going to be huge in SEC play.
Absolutely, and even talk about his start against A&M: 5 innings, scoreless, 1 hit, 2 walks, 6 Ks. 86 pitches is obviously the furthest he's gone into a game this year. And I think that obviously has to do with just easing him back in from the injury last year. But he's already been up to 99, 2 different fastballs, really good slider, and really good changeup. I know some people have already started to boost him up boards, and it is very much warranted right now. And even to your point about Zane Adams too, like Zane Adams is the Friday guy as a draft eligible sophomore, and he's showing much better stuff than what he had last year. Because last year he really endured a lot of hardships. He got hit around pretty frequently, really struggled to go deep in the games. But now it's like last week he had 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts against Presbyterian, and then you go into Bluebell Olson Park, go 5 2/3. I think it was like 3 runs, but I think only 1 earned because of an error. And you keep them in the game against the Texas A&M team, which yes, they've had struggles, but this is also still Texas A&M. It's still a very tough environment to go walk into, and not only win games but also sweep the series. Like this, it's really, really a testament to how good this team is right now.
Yeah, it was really funny talking to Rob in Jacksonville the practice before, because he was talking about at some point they're going to get punched in the mouth, and it's about how you respond to that. And it still hasn't quite happened. They had that midweek loss. Who cares? But for the most part, they've been rolling, and they're finally, they can. I think they were still, what were they, number 23? They were still pretty low in like D1's rankings. Considering how long they were undefeated, and they beat some good teams in Jacksonville, so they'll definitely shoot up some boards, some rankings, excuse me. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this Alabama team. They're a fun group, and watching them come back against Ohio State when they had already won the weekend and could have kind of taken it easy, that showed me a lot there, because they I know Ohio State may not be, they're in a transition with who's the coach? Justin Hare. Thank you. Yeah. I was like, from Campbell. I was like, why am I blanking on Justin Hare's name? But they're in that transition, and but props to Alabama. That showed me a lot, and the way they're going to fight. It might not always work out for them, but I'm excited to see how this Alabama team does as they continue down SEC play.
Yeah, and they get a big test next week, because guess who rolls into town? Tennessee.
I was going to guess Tennessee, but the problem is there's a lot of big tests in the SEC, right? It could have been LSU, could have been Florida, could have been, Arkansas didn't have the best weekend. But
yeah, but I mean, you got Tennessee coming into town, and speaking of Tennessee, very, very big series in Knoxville this weekend with Florida in town. I know Saturday the Marcus Phillips and Nathan King matchup was really, really good. Kept them into that, and then as soon as Florida goes to the bullpen, Tennessee's like, okay, yeah, we're just going to run roll you in 1 inning. I don't. That's wild to me that a team just decides hey, we hit the bullpen, we're just going to crush you. It's just really insane to me how deep that lineup is in Knoxville right now, and really
it's so deep they couldn't possibly need anybody else added to it.
Someone's mad. I already tell.
No. I just wanted to throw that in there. Just take that shot right there.
Well, hey,
They have all the players they need right now. Just saying.
I don't know why I'm laughing so hard at this, but honestly, I think you're just looking at it, that's matchup of the week next week. I think it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. So I think all the eyes are going to be on Tuscaloosa this upcoming week. And really, there's just not a ton around my area next week, so it might just be I might just have to start watching TV. I haven't watched TV in like 3 years.
I've got UVA Duke, and one of them has to win the series. Although UVA just won, I just was going off on Jared about how they had won, and when he was talking trash about it. But yeah, Duke comes to Charlottesville. I know NC State's not in the area. I think UNC's at BC. Obviously, Duke's out of town, so yeah, your options are limited. Wake Forest finally goes on the road to Clemson, so if you wanted to go down to Clemson, that's probably your closest. I guess ACC school. Obviously, you'd have other options, but you just travel to South Carolina. You're probably ready to get home and take a weekend off.
Yeah, and I think the closest series would be Campbell UNCW, in which Campbell's obviously not the Campbell team that they had been in years past. Like, and that's not to short them or anything. They do have some bright spots. I think their Friday guy is Jake something. I can't remember his name. He's been really good so far. He's a grad student. And they've got some interesting guys there too. But I know UNCW has a couple of good starters: Zane Taylor, Trace Baker, and then you look at what Tanner Dyke's been able to do. Like, obviously not hitting to what we all expected him to, but still a big bopper from the left side with pretty easy juice. So all it takes is one weekend. Could Campbell be that weekend?
Well, there are two intriguing midweeks in your neighborhood this week. As UConn comes to the Triangle, they play Duke Tuesday, UNC Wednesday, which props to them for that schedule. But also, Duke, what do you do with that schedule? Like, you scheduled 2 games against George Mason, so you didn't leave until like Wednesday night after a game, and then you've got Berkeley in Berkeley, and then you're back here and you're immediately facing a really tough non-conference and a team that beat you in a regional last year too, by the way. So there's some bad blood there in that regard. That's a brutal schedule, especially coming off the sweep and using a lot of the pitching. I just said Cal. They played Stanford. All right.
I was going to correct you.
They did not play Berkeley. I kept trying to do that. Apologies. Yes, they played Stanford and got swept. Which, by the way, we need to talk about Stanford specific.
Yes,
Stanford player.
This is a great transition because that was going to be next on the topic. Was Stanford continuing their hot start? They're 5-1 in the ACC now, which still feels very weird, admittedly. But they go to UNC, they win 2 out of 3, go back home, sweep Duke, who had high expectations to start the year, and now Rintaro has finally gone yard, not once but twice.
He went yard. I think he went. Oh, he hit a home run today.
Did he? Let me double check. What am I doing? I just had that thing pulled up. Un momento.
Matt Scott had another good start. Well, I guess a bounce back start after a less than ideal start last week in Chapel Hill. Christian Lim had his best start since opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have not seen what Volchko did today, but I'm assuming it was good because they won again.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sasaki did go yard again.
Rintaro's that I think he needed to hit that first one, and then the floodgates were going to open. He just needed that release, and now we're going to see the hyped player that we were expecting to see. Yeah, it's exciting. Rintaro. I get to see him in a couple of weeks when he comes to Virginia.
I will say, just seeing him last week at UNC, right? Like, obviously didn't go yard, and that's the thing. Like, obviously coming into the year, you mentioned it, like a big power guy, always has been, always more than likely will be. But I mean, there's tinkerings or like hankerings of a hit tool there. Like, it's not a bad bat at all for what he is, because like.
And the approach is different because of the culture in a way, right? Because they're big on situational hitting, and you see a lot of American hitters, they'll still sell out on 0-2. And I'm not sure he always does, because he's got a job to do with people on base, right? So it's just kind of cool to kind of see that difference as well.
Yeah, and he's got that Japanese style swing as well, where it's like
It's
it's
interesting.
not
For a power
slappy.
hitter, it's
Yeah.
it's Ichiro-esque, even though he's a monster monster power guy, as opposed to Ichiro, who was a traditional leadoff guy.
Yeah, Ichiro is like your common table setter,
Yeah.
right?
So
Like,
yeah, it is a pretty fun swing. It's you can't really duplicate it. It's really cool, and it's fun to see him having fun, because he looks like just a big old kid, and it looks like he's getting comfortable here, which is good. And again, I can't believe this. He comes over not knowing English and decides that, not only am I going to not walk around with a translator, but I'm going to continue to take my classes in Stanford, or at Stanford, in my second language that I don't really know yet. Bonkers, because they don't lower the academic standards.
no, they don't. And like, I remember when Darren Vaught was doing the Rintaro series, the podcast series before the start of the year, and we had him on to talk about it, obviously, but like,
Great podcast. If you haven't
he
listened
was
to it, shame
mentioning,
on you.
dude, it's so good. It
Yeah.
really is. Darren and D1 did a fantastic job on that, and I know Darren finally got to meet Rintaro last week too.
Yep. I did find out Darren mentioned he's not going to get to call any Stanford games, it looks like, which is unfortunate. But I mean, his best chance was probably when Stanford came to Chapel Hill because of the basketball stuff and everything. But but that would have been pretty cool to have Darren get to call a Rintaro home run.
That would have been so fun, man. But yeah, like, I think it's something that you mentioned was like he's taking biochemistry, which, biochemistry is already tough enough, but for a guy that doesn't fully understand English, to walk in and essentially be the student that you kind of wish you would be as a high schooler. Like, obviously, talk about kids. I remember my high school experience was I just didn't want to go to school. But
Yeah, really smart
this kid
person.
is, yeah, like it, and that really just shows how big education is at Stanford. Like, Stanford, Cal, really are true academic schools, and Duke's the same way too. Like, they're very high on the academic leaderboard as well, if I'm not
A lot of
mistaken.
AC schools are, surprisingly. I mean, Georgia Tech. It was funny. Danny Hall was talking to me about how they were coming back from the win over Georgia Southern midweek, and he had a couple of guys who were stressing out because they weren't getting back till 2 a.m. and they had an 8 a.m. presentation to deliver for their class the next day. And I just love that aspect of college baseball, right? Because it's easy sometimes to forget these guys are students as well. And I just loved hearing that story from Danny, because I was like, that's good to know that, like, I don't know how they're doing it, because I could barely handle just going to class as a college student. So props to them for being D1 athletes, performing on the field, and then still making it to classes and doing well.
Yeah, and I'll even put my hand up too. Like, last year, trying to get the degree done, working 2 jobs, doing this, trying to bust my balls to try and make a living, essentially. And it's still obviously a work in progress, but like, it's not even close to what these kids are doing, right? Like, I'm 26 and still trying to figure shit out, but it kind of gives you a perspective of like how hard these kids are working both on and off the field.
Yeah. And the maturity level that you have to do to maintain that, right? Because I did not have the maturity level to do that. So, but yeah, no, I'm really happy that Rintaro got his first home run. Sorry it had to happen against Duke. Sorry, Aaron, the SID there. I know he probably had a pretty rough weekend. I'm afraid to text him about it. But yeah, no, yeah, it was a very good baseball weekend. We got SEC opening play, Big 12 open play. Big 10 they started last week with the ACC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
most conferences have opened. I know Jared, for example, very excited. Rhode Island swept VCU to start A10 play. Just so you know, Richmond also swept to start A10 play. They are 18-2, with one of their losses being to Penn State. But hey, Richmond's next game, they get their third crack at the ACC. Could go 3-0 against the ACC, as they head to Virginia to take on UVA. And I mean, the way Richmond's playing, I mean, you have to play well to win that game if you're Virginia, because again, we watched Richmond dominate dominate NC State and Boston College. So the A10, we had to get our A10 talk in, right?
Yes, we did, and I'm starting to become a full believer in Richmond now too. By the way, just putting it out there, because like that team's so fun, man. They really are, and I think another thing too, to kind of build off that, another team that's sneaky good right now too that I don't think is getting enough talk. Arizona. I know we talk about a lot. Yeah, like they get swept at Shriners. They only score 7 runs. They get bombed on pitching. They're quietly. I don't know if quietly is like the best way to put it, but they're really really good right now. They are white hot.
We overreact way too much to these early season tournaments because teams are still trying to figure stuff out. And now they're playing like they're having to figure out against elite competition. It's like playing a preseason game that counts against the best teams, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then we overreact obviously because we're like, oh, Arizona's not good. They gave up. The pitching was terrible, but they're still trying to figure out roles and stretching guys out, and now they're kind of getting their groove, right? So it's just kind of funny because we do it every year. And yet we never quite learn our lesson. But I guess there's only so much we can talk about. So we got to overreact a little bit, right?
Yeah. And like to even break it down too, like Owen Kramkowski allowed 7 earned runs in his first collegiate start against Clemson that opening weekend. He's only allowed 5 earned runs since, only walked 2 guys. He struck out 11, 16, 23 batters since then. He's pitched into the 6 at least twice. Like Arizona's slowly figuring out. Like Casey Hentz has been really, really good. Smith Bailey, being the college freshman he is in the Sunday spot, has been really, really impressive. And I dare I say it like that, he might be the most valuable piece to that Arizona team right now, being the youngest player on that team more than likely. Like I just don't think people understand how big of a weight on your shoulders that is, and I don't even think Smith knows that at this point. Like what they've done since the opening weekend has been pretty eye opening, and dare I say top 15 Arizona next week when we do our rankings.
Might be who's their coach again?
Chip Hale.
Yep, 2000. You forgot the important part. 2019 World Series champion Chip Hale. That's what I was looking for.
My bad. I gotta work on the intro for next week. My apologies to Chip Hale. My apologies to the Nationals organization. My apologies to Taylor.
I need a notes app apology. That's what I need on social media. You just mentioned Clemson. I did want to give Notre Dame some flowers. Their difficult road losing streak within the ACC has ended. It was at least 20 straight losses since the beginning of last year on the road in the conference. They snapped that today, Sunday, with a 7-3 win on the road at Clemson. They had some chances earlier in the series. I mean, Aiden Canuck had an absolutely lethal outing on Friday. I mean, you feel like if you held Clemson to 2 runs on a Friday night, you're going to win the game, right? Unfortunately, Notre Dame lost 2-1. And I thought that was it. I was like, dang, man, poor Notre Dame. That was their one chance to get that road win before they head home for their weekend ACC opener. But yeah, just wanted to shout out Notre Dame there for snapping that losing streak, and also for like continuing to really try to, get these freshmen playing time and starting to build that program back up.
Yeah, and not to mention like Estevan Moreno's been sneaky good too. Like big power guy in that Notre Dame lineup. And you also mentioned Aiden Canuck too. Like I just looked at the stat line now: 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts.
It was a single. I can't remember what I wrote up for the daily sheet I did the other day, but yeah, just elite. I mean, that's the Aiden Canuck we've been waiting for all season. I mean, he's been pretty good, just not quite the elite jump that we thought we were going to see. And there it was. And I think I haven't looked quite at all the box scores, but I think he's probably going to be your ACC pitcher of the week. He's probably got my vote for the official vote, but it's sounding like he might be the on the clock pitcher of the week as well.
He very much could be. I wouldn't be shocked because I know. I think we've already agreed. Tyson Witherspoon is going to be the draft spotlight, which we already talked about him, but he's going to be our draft spotlight guy of the week. And hitter, I don't even think we've agreed on hitter of the week yet.
I haven't actually heard who we've even had thrown up there yet. So we've got some work to do. This is what happens when Jared goes on vacation. Yeah. We all fall apart. He's our glue guy.
We're actually holding him hostage in the basement somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. So
Yes,
anyway,
we
flies
decided
safe.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah, for what it's worth, he is in the Pacific Northwest. I think he got there Friday and was even there for the Nelson Keljo start against I think Grand Canyon this weekend. But he said, and I quote, "I would never willingly move to the Pacific Northwest because oh my god, it's cold."
he's from Rhode Island or from the north. He's from New England somewhere.
Yes.
New Hampshire, I think. He's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I made that same connection, and this is coming from a guy that's born and raised North Carolina, but have family in New York. Been through the cold weather, fine with it. Jared saying it's too cold for a guy that's from the Northeast. You kind of got to revoke that Northeast card now, or no?
Yeah. We've officially stamped that Maryland card.
God, you two going back and forth about that before the podcast was amazing. I'm sorry.
He's only doing it because he knows it bothers me. He's trolling. Like, he doesn't actually care about the argument. He's just trying to irritate me, and it's working.
By the way, group chat bully.
Jared, yeah, I agree.
Jared?
I agree.
Okay. Cool.
Not me.
Oh man. So
as I threaten you with the bat, I'm like, not me. Hot dog bat.
We're only a couple hours apart right now. I'm pretty scared at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
I don't like how you just caressed the mustard on that.
Late. Yeah, this is what happens when Jared's not here. Things get a little out of control. I have a feeling this part's going to get cut.
No, Jared, leave it in. He's drunk right now. That's what he said in the group chat.
Oh, that's what he said? I thought you were saying I was drunk. I was like, no.
No. I know you're not drunk. Yet. I think that's really all we got this week. Kind of a bit of a shorter episode, but we'll be working on our next top 25 ranking here next week because we do the Bike Weekly schedule. So Texas A&M fans, you can enjoy that number next to your name for at least another week because I know you're not getting it from the D1 guys. But, moving past that, Monty, obviously you got Duke next week. I'm going to see what happens, maybe finalize the top 200, which hopefully will come out either later this week, if not the week after, as we get ready for Tennessee, South Carolina. And I'll be back down here for that. So, very exciting times right now with ACC play and SEC play kind of intertwining. And it's fun. So, any final thoughts, Mr. Monty?
No. I just I just got a text from Pitt's SID because Pitt decided they don't send their SID on the road anymore for the ACC, which is outrageous.
Really?
So, yeah. So we had some fun trying to SID from Pittsburgh while I was trying to get stuff in Atlanta. But shout out to Dom. I told him, if you're not at the ACC, at least the ACC tournament, I'm going to write a very strongly strongly worded letter to somebody. So hopefully we can get Dom to Durham. Oh, that's kind of a nice little catch. Dom to Durham. But yeah, a lot of fun. But yeah, if you're an ACC school, your SID should be on the road with the team. You're a big enough program.
The Dom to Durham. I like that name.
Yeah. That's on top of get Goose to Omaha at Georgia Tech, and then I think I might have started something get Danny and Natty, which has a nice little ring to it as well for Georgia Tech. But anyway, yeah, I'm good. I got nothing else.
Cool. Well, in that case, Jerry will be back next week. Hopefully, maybe I'll do a better job of hosting next week. I don't know.
He might be back next week. We haven't decided.
Oh, that's right. We threw the key somewhere in the Pacific Ocean for what it's worth. Supposedly, there's a volcano about to erupt in the ocean as well. So, maybe it's there. No, I don't know.
Yeah,
not sure how the currents work on the West Coast because East Coast is West Coast.
That's true.
But other than that, get ready for some more excitement. Draft board again coming out in the next 2 weeks. top 200 expansion. So hopefully we'll see how everything goes from between now and then. Hopefully I don't have another arm injury or just injury anything, because I've already had to remove like 5 guys as a result of that. But apart from that, signing off now. This is Tyler, Monty. Jared says hi from somewhere like 20,000 feet in the air, probably. But until next time, see ya.